Sup guys, my name is Justin. I'm joined with Nate.
What's up, everybody?
And welcome back to another installment of Black Series Bangers and Blunders. Today, Nate, I fear we may break the hearts of thousands.
If you guys thought the Bad Batch Rex episode was controversial, buckle up.
Because today we are going to be talking about a figure that is not necessarily a blunder, certainly not a banger. It leans towards blunder, but I just don't feel right calling it a bad figure. I also, I know we did like this figure's mid. That doesn't fit this. So we're just going to add another one to the Bangers and Blunders playlist because Clone Commander OBI-WAN, the 2019 Walgreens exclusive, is painfully overrated, wildly inaccurate, and horribly articulated. So many people, Nate, consider this a grail. They're like, yo, this is the best figure ever. This is my grail. I'm going to pay $150 for it. Stop. Get some help. Leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. We're always talking about the Black Series here on the channel. Nate, you're a better fiddler than I am. So I'll give you the fig.
The problem is let's start things off here.
All right.
That this is on the 2013 Clone Trooper body. So there's not really going to be a lot of fiddling to be had. The articulation problems are all still very prevalent with this figure.
Here's your articulation right here.
Yep, super obtuse articulation. Even though it is double jointed, that is the range you're getting out of this bad boy. It is one of the worst articulated bodies in all of the Black Series, and of course, that really makes things complicated when it's supposed to be a Jedi character.
Yeah.
This particular Obi-Wan, you will painfully struggle to get him to hold the lightsaber with both hands. You can do it, but either the hilt is going to completely bend and warp over time, or it's going to be a very low, like down at the waist kind of pose. At the time was crazy that they still used this body because, like you said, this figure came out in 2019.
Yeah, which granted, they were using that body up until 2020 when we got the 2020 Clone Trooper.
And actually, they're still using it today with
the Purge Trooper. True, very true. But they didn't even put it on the Rex/Bly body. Like, they specifically went out of their way to put it on the 2013 Clone Trooper body, which, like Nate said, is one of the most horribly articulated sculpts that they've ever done in the Black Series. And this is supposed to be Obi-Wan Kenobi from Tartakovsky's 2D Clone Wars. You want him to be agile. You want him to be dynamic. You want him in proper saber pose. Yep, there's your pose right there.
Here's the other pose. There you go. Hands behind the back.
Yeah, and like you said, you're going to warp that saber hilt because it's a gummy hilt.
Yep.
It's a gummy hilt with a dreaded toothpick lightsaber that they used to do in the Black Series.
Observe that there is no lightsaber on this Obi-Wan because it took a shelf dive and the lightsaber snapped right off in the hilt. And throughout the years, I don't know, I guess maybe it took another shelf dive and the hilt ejected from the storage peg. So now
it's just gone.
My Clone Commander Obi-Wan just doesn't have his saber anymore. And that was a huge problem at the time, especially back in the day. You know, those toothpick lightsabers.
Oh, yeah.
You looked at them the wrong way, and they bent and broke off.
Yeah. And the gummy hilt, it just sucks so bad. The other huge thing wrong with this figure, other than it being, horribly articulated, is that it's wildly inaccurate. It is, like, completely inaccurate. There is one aspect of this figure that completely ruins the entire thing. Yeah. And that is the head.
Right. Of course, if you've ever seen Tartakovsky's Clone Wars series, you know that when Obi-Wan is in this particular costume, he is sporting the Attack of the Clones mullet.
Yep.
And this figure, for whatever reason, they decided to go with a Revenge of the Sith look. And what makes it even more of a head scratcher is it's a brand new head sculpt.
Right.
It is actually a pretty fantastic head sculpt, to be honest.
Right, and that adds to some of the things that we enjoy about this figure and why it's not a blunder. But it can't be understated that ruins the entire figure.
Yeah.
Because while there is a look in 2D Clone Wars during that sort of second volume where they kind of switch over to their more Revenge of the Sith looks, but he has the robe clasped around like to the center.
Yeah.
And on this figure, it's like tucked into like the front clasps, the belt.
Yep.
I'll show a comparison pic because I'm sure somebody out there is going to be like, actually, Justin, he was sporting the shorter haircut.
Right.
No, look again. It is literally a different design with the clone armor and how the soft goods go over and drape over said armor. It's completely different. So I don't want to see any comments saying that. I just disproved you right here.
They're still clicking. I can hear them.
I can hear them clacking away. They're going to be chirping all day. Like we said, if the Rex video was any indicator. I feel like this one is even more controversial. Just because so many people hold this in such high regard, and it's just like a Grail figure. I'm like, it's kind of garbage.
Yeah, I get it. I get why it's a Grail figure, you know, especially at the time, 2019 Walgreens exclusive. This one was actually very hard to get for a Walgreens exclusive.
For sure.
Even I struggled to get it for a while, but eventually I got lucky one day and I just found one hanging on the peg and I was able to get it. But I know a lot of people missed it even when they were collecting back then. Of course, it was available on Walgreens' terrible website, which is another issue. You know, back then it was like, could you pre-order it? Could you buy it in stock? I don't know, because Walgreens' website back then was absolute trash.
It's still trash
to
this day.
It is.
So, yeah, it's worth about $65.15 today. Absolutely do not pay that price, please, because there is a much better version of a Clone Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that would be the 2020 Clone General Obi-Wan Kenobi from the 3D Clone Wars.
And this one is somehow cheaper? Question mark?
On the aftermarket, yeah.
I mean, like, on average, this is a cheaper figure, which just makes no sense to me because this is such a significantly better version. It's actually accurate to the Clone Wars appearance it's supposed to be depicting, and you know, has the improvements of like the 2020 Clone Trooper arms, the butterfly joints, the legs. The likeness is still pretty solid, although personally I give the likeness to this figure, but again, it's not accurate, so it's like it doesn't matter.
Right, and the Walgreens one Clone Commander has some like weird rosy cheeks. I always thought the blush paint was just too much on that Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he definitely looks, you know, a little rosy, but he also has a wonderful matte finish, though.
That's true.
Which, on this figure here, you know, he is a little shiny.
He's a little shiny.
He is a little shiny.
That is like the most matte a Black Series figure has ever looked in the face. So it is a wonderful matte finish.
They sprayed the hell out of this figure with the matte spray. But, you know, I will say also, I do really like what they did with the soft goods. They did a good job translating the soft goods that we see, you know, from the series to this figure. They kind of did like this little fold behind the neck that helps the cape kind of stay in place and lay correctly across the armor. So they did some things right with this figure, but overall it's just one of those where...
See, we play fair. We point out stuff that we enjoy about almost every figure.
I just, you know, I feel like in my heart of hearts, even though I'm a die-hard Tartakovsky Clone Wars fan, if I didn't get this for regular retail price when it came out, I would have not purchased it. Like, I could not dream of paying $65. This figure used to be worth even more too, especially
I've seen it go for well over $100 before.
So
100%.
It's like one of the, I could not dream of paying that much for this figure, especially when, if you are a hardcore 2D Clone Wars fan, you could take one look at this and go, that's the wrong head. And automatically you're like, why would I be paying that for an inaccurate figure?
Yeah, so I already know what people are going to say. They're going to say, I don't care that it's inaccurate. It still looks good. And hey, that's kind of a hard argument to argue with because it is a toy and you like what you like. But I find it a pretty big deal because it seems like they went out of their way to make it inaccurate because they did Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan with the mullet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why didn't they just put that head on there? This would have been an accurate figure. I could forgive the old clone body. 2019, only 6 years, into the line.
Sure.
I could almost forgive the old clone body, which has terrible articulation, if they would have just done the accurate head. But since we have one of the worst sculpts in the line, plus an inaccurate head, and yeah, it's just the head, but it's like the most important part, and it ruins the entire effect for what it's, trying to go for. I gotta say, it's like pretty bad overall, and I think it's definitely one of the, if not the most overrated figure in the entire Black Series.
I'd absolutely agree with you, brother.
And on that note, I'll pass it to you guys. Are we nuts? Are we even more nuts now that we were hating on Bad Batch Rex and now we're hating on Clone Commander Obi-Wan?
Here's what's going to happen. It's going to be just like Bad Batch Rex, Justin, where the people who are really angry with us are the people that probably spent $60+ on this figure, and they're just trying to play some mental gymnastics to make themselves feel better that they paid so much for it.
I don't know, guys. Looks like Clone Wars Obi-Wan to me.
Yeah, like I said, I could not pay over.
I guarantee there's going to be one comment that says, "It's not that bad, guys. I just had to pop the head off, put the Attack of the Clones head on, and then I had to switch it to the 2023 Clone Trooper body, and now it's perfect."
Exactly.
I'm like, so dude, you had to make a whole nother figure. There was so many comments on the Bad Batch Rex one that I was like, "It's not that bad, guys. I just had to dip the entire figure in acetone, remove the weathering. I had to I had to take the binocs off, shorten this, change that, do some proper weathering, put the other pauldron on." I'm like, okay, so you just made it number 59 Rex.
Right. I thought that was hilarious, especially because you mentioned doing that in the video, and then people started unironically commenting like, "Oh, it's not that bad. I just had to make 87 modifications to the figure, and now it's great."
I'm like,
that's not what this series is about. That's this series, bangers, blunders, midders, overrated figures. This is about the figure as it's presented in its original form. It's not about what you can do to the figure to make it better. It's about how the figure was when it was released, and it's a commentary about how we personally feel about the figure. And sometimes value does play a factor in our decisions of, how we criticize the figure. Sometimes it doesn't. It just really depends.
Vibes.
It's just vibes, bruh.
Now, I know you'd be down if they did a 2D Tartakovsky Clone Wars on the 2023 Phase 1 Clone Trooper with an accurate Obi-Wan head, the soft good, like the same soft goods, just on that 2023 buck with the O-ring shoulders, the butterfly joints, the swivel, the bicep swivel, everything, the floating knee pads, just all the fixes.
I would cry tears of Tartakovsky joy if they gave us an updated version of this that was on that body, because it would truly be an amazing figure then.
Yes. Then we would have to film a Black Series banger on that figure.
But for now, Clone Wars Obi-Wan will just remain as probably one of the most overrated Black Series figures of all time, in our opinion.
Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. We are always talking about the Black Series here on the channel. I'm Justin, joined with Nate.
Take care, everybody.
And we will see you guys in the next video.
Now don't delete this one, Justin.
Yeah, I did delete this video when we filmed it like 3 weeks ago. Are you going to throw it?
I'm not going to throw it.
I'm not
I'm not going to throw it. Wait.